And any comment, any addition, subtraction?
Well, not really. Just like you said, like like for kids, they you tell them something and they hear something different. I think especially true for young kids, because I mean, I don't know, kids of today. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
you're saying something else and they're not scared and they're like, what do you mean? But
yeah,
so it's like you changing the way that you speak to them, changing the way that you communicate with them. It's such a big factor today, and the way that compared to the way our parents raised us, they just say, if I but kids today, you can't even threaten them, because even when I look at my son in the eyes, it's like, mommy, why are you looking at me? So
yes,
so they communicate different than the way that we were raised. So it's you changing the way that you communicate to them, because and for them to in the place where they cannot really understand what you're trying to say. It's coming to their level, eye to eye, and just telling them what's going on. And so it's really true today about the way we communicate with our kids, for example, right?
absolutely, absolutely. The basic elements of communication remain the same. Then you have to then adjust them to fit the context, the culture that you are operating it under, right? Uh, we grew up in a place where you don't look your parents in the face. So when they look you in the face, you know something is wrong. But the culture today is that we're encouraged to look them in the face into to make them have self-worth, feel self-esteem, to have self-value and all of that. In our days, it was a communication of punishment. Today is a communication of that you are doing well. So if you now try to bring what used to be into a different context, the meanings are different, So we have to understand the culture, the context we're dealing with, so that what we are saying will have the right understanding by the recipient. Otherwise, we think we have said something, whereas what they heard is entirely different. It applies to kids, it applies to adults also, depending on where the adult is coming from, So you can imagine you're talking to a Chinese, where the words that you're using, is entirely, it means something different from his culture compared to your culture, and you think you're making a point, whereas the person either feels offended, threatened, or so communication changes or gets its adaptation to the culture, the context, and the environment. Otherwise, the other person will not understand what you're trying to say.
Right. And I think as Nigeria, like, I mean, for me, working in the hospital, most time they think, I don't know, I think it's just everywhere in America, but when Nigerians speak, they say we're shouting, but they
Yes.
kind of they say we're shouting, and they don't. That's the way that our culture. That's not the way we talk. Like I had a family approach me one time and says I'm rude because I'm shouting, my voice is loud, and I'm
It's
like,
loud.
oh. So I ought to really apologize to her that, I'm actually not rude. I'm not, I had to explain to her that, probably that's the way that I speak, but I'm not yelling at her, and I kind of had to apologize. So you're right. Your communication is, somebody else can receive it. The way you speak, they can receive it because of, the way you were raised. We were raised in Nigeria. In Nigeria, everybody's always yelling. Even now, I'm telling my mom, why are you yelling over the phone? Because, I've been out of that society for a very long time. I'm like, oh, you guys are just, why are you yelling? So I kind of now understand that, okay, when the Caucasian or somebody else from a different culture say, oh, your voice is loud, then I kind of understand that, okay, that's the way that they're receiving it, because, in Nigeria, everybody's always yelling. So
Yeah. And that's critical. It's important because it's not everybody that will tell you. Some people are not bold enough to tell you, but they'll go and report you to your boss or some higher person. Say this person doesn't fit this place. It's always angry with everybody. Whereas that's not true. But that's the way they're receiving it, because it's a difference in culture. So one has to be conscious of it individually, especially if you're coming to a new environment, we all need to adopt, to adjust, and that's all what we talk about diversity and inclusion. It should be something that everybody's working on, but the truth is that not everybody works on it. Everybody feels entitled that everybody must adjust to my own level, So depending on who you are, whether you are a minority or so, you will have to be conscious of that. Otherwise, they give you a bad name, a label that is not your own. Yeah. Alrighty. So I'm going to leave you all with the study guide questions. I'm going to leave you on that. I've been taking too much of your time, but we'll continue with chapter 2 next week. And we'll build on what we have. There's a big one, especially if you're in the personal development circle, you want to go into new areas, and you're already doing a phone job, may have to talk to Kelvin every now and then. I've met Kelvin twice now. Kelvin works for me, that most of what we do is over the phone, So, and Kelvin has been in, I'm Yoruba, so I'm not sure, I'm sure he believes in me because he knows I'm a Christian. So any misconceptions, he might just throw it under the bus. Kelvin, have you had any issue? Have I said anything I've hurt you in one way or the other? Something you've heard wrongly?
Okay. I think not really, but sometimes I have to, that's why I have to recap to make sure I understand what you're saying. So sometimes I just say, I have to recap what you said or what I understand from what you said to the table. But you've not said anything that.
All right. But you also work in a unique place because Kevin is working in our farm, right? Is in the thick of Yoruba land. And he doesn't hear Yoruba. He's learning, he's forcing himself to learn. He's been in. His learning is small, but then sometimes they say things over his head. How does that work for you?
Well, at first it was a big problem for me. When I say problem, like you said, the communication is very key. So what I tried doing at first is to from the gesticulation and facial expression. That's what I first tried to get when anybody says anything. Imagine someone that doesn't even hear, and most times they speak Yoruba and they don't understand English. So at first it was a problem. So from the facial expression and all, I could at least get a picture of what they are trying to communicate. That was my first.
All right, great. Yeah, so you've been able to communicate just by saying more than hearing, because what
Yes,
you hear
exactly.
you don't understand.
Exactly.
Good. All right, great. By God's grace, there's a lot to mind from this book as we go along. So we'll continue next week, God willing.